How are you guys doing? How are you guys are feeling today? I'm your host Majid. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast series where we discuss matters related to self-improvement in all aspects. So today's subject is going to be a very sensitive and very delicate. So I was kind of struggling in terms of how to approach this subject with the utmost respect and the utmost care, right? So today I want to talk about externalizing the thoughts. Externalizing the thought. You might ask, what do you mean by externalizing the thought? Here's what I mean by externalizing the thought. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the largest organ in our body is the brain, right? And obviously the brain is synonymous with the mind. The mind, right? The mind is one of the most important organ in our body because it has so many functions. It has so much importance in terms of, how our body functions, in terms of our actions, in terms of our behavior, right? However, unfortunately, too many of us are not spending or have not spent enough time understanding and learning about the psychology of how the mind works. And I believe one of the primary reasons why I started this channel is to really start and develop an understanding of how the mind works, not just for myself but for obviously the community and all of you guys, right? So today I want to talk about externalizing the thought. Ladies and gentlemen, the thoughts starts in the mind and then eventually they materialize and manifest themselves into actions or behavior and so on and so forth, right? So what happens is that, have you ever noticed on your computer when your cursor is just like rotating forever? Remember that little icon, right? It usually means that the internet is down or your computer is processing, right? And somehow it takes forever, right? Unfortunately, it could be very frustrating. So when I mean externalizing the thought, what I mean is that a lot of us have ideas and thoughts that are often not necessarily good. Sometimes they are toxic. Sometimes they are self-defeating. Sometimes they are negative thoughts. Especially these days. We live in uncertain days. The whole corona situation. A lot of people are not sure about their future. A lot of people are not sure about their financial standings, which is understandable. So what ends up happening is that we have these thoughts that are swirling in our mind forever, all day long, all night long, for weeks and for months. One way to relieve, one way to take care, one way to handle this endless vicious cycle of thoughts. Well, actually, I have 3 ways to help us, handle this vicious cycle of negative thoughts, which sometimes I like to call them toxic thoughts, right? Number 1, talk to someone close to you. You have to talk to someone close to you. You cannot keep these thoughts in your head, right? Why is it important that you need to talk to someone that you trust about your thoughts? Because, and the key word here is trust, because one of the major causes of stress in us is overthinking and overanalyzing situations. And sometimes it's valid and other times they're not valid reasons, right? So when you bring up your thought to a friend or a family member that you trust, what ends up happening is that you're putting things into perspective, right? You're putting things into perspective because your friends might be running into or might be experiencing a war situation, right? So basically what you're doing is you're kind of putting things into perspective and evaluating how big of a deal this particular problem that you're dealing with is compared to them, right? We live in a world where people are struggling with rocket missiles and famine and diseases and wars and and a lot of crazy things are happening in the world. So once you start discussing your issue with your friend or your close friends, what you're doing is you're having an outlet for your thoughts to be shared and to be resolved by others, right? So basically, you are seeking the assistance of others who could actually help you with your particular situation. And the important thing here is that they don't necessarily need to help you, right? But the fact that you are letting your thought out from your mind is part of the process. It will help you put things into perspective, right? And obviously, I understand it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of bravery to admit that you have a problem, right? I mean, guilty as charged, right? It's not easy. It's not easy to expose yourself and make yourself vulnerable, right? And let me make this clear. I'm not telling you to complain constantly and whine, right? However, you need to have at least one person in your life, at least one person where you can openly discuss what's on your mind. That is absolutely important. You have to at least have one person where you can be completely honest with, right? Number two, of another way of externalizing your thought, for example, if you're driving your car and let's say you are stuck in traffic, or let's say you have long commutes like some of us do, unfortunately. One way of externalizing your thought is play some music and start talking out loud about what your mind is telling you. Yes, say it out loud. Don't bottle it up. Speak out. Talk to yourself almost. And I know some people will say, "Oh, this is crazy. What do you mean? What do you mean talk to yourself?" Actually, this is not crazy at all. This is actually healthy. It's healthy to talk to yourself. Obviously, you don't want to be in the middle of, crowd and start talking to yourself, because then you'll definitely look crazy. But let's say you are in the privacy of your car. Talk your thought, right? Let's say you got stuck in, let's say you had a terrible interaction with your boss that day. When you get in the car, when no one is there, when no one's listening, speak out loud. Talk about the thing that has bothered you that day, right? Because there's no judgment. It's just you and you. That is a very effective way of externalizing your thought, because once you do that, it's as if you have relieved yourself from this huge burden, because it's no longer in here, but it's outside. Last but not least of externalizing your thought is learning to writing down your thought on a piece of paper. Some of you guys might refer to that as diary, right? So it's really helpful to put what you think and jot it down on a piece of paper or a notepad on your phone, because then what you're doing is you're telling your mind that this thought, this negative or toxic thought, does not have as much power as it used to have on you, because it's outside of you now. It's no longer occupying this space head or head space. I'm sorry about that. So I personally do that, right? It doesn't mean that I do it daily, but I actually have diary of, milestones that I have achieved or things that happen in my life. Why is that important? Because this will, in the long term, when you look back and read your diary, this will help you understand how your mind works. How? Because you're going to see the pattern. You're going to see a certain pattern in the type of events that you run into and how you actually dealt with them, right? So this way you're actually learning more about how your mind functions and about the things that trigger you and the things that trigger you both in positive, negative direction. So I highly recommend that you actually write your thoughts down. And here's another important or benefit of writing down diaries. Someday you might already have this, but someday you'll have kids, right? Don't you want to share your wisdom and your life lessons with them? Wouldn't that be awesome when your kids, long after you're gone from Earth, wouldn't it be awesome when they look back at your diary and see, okay, my father gone through this and he did this and he did that, and this is how he dealt with his life. I mean, it would be tragic to live a life without memorializing some of the important events that took place in your life. That's something I do and has been helping me tremendously. Again, in conclusion, the importance of externalizing your thought is to help you put things in perspective and to help you understand the true size and the true weight of these thoughts. Because sometimes they might seem as crazy, but probably are not. And lastly but not least, I understand we're all going through some hardship, but let me remind you that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. So, in conclusion, I hope this message hit home for all of you guys. If you appreciate this message, if you appreciate the content in this channel, please hit like and share with your loved ones. That's how we grow. This channel is by the people and for the people. With that being said, go outside, get some fresh air, give your family a huge hug. Peace and blessings, and I am gone.